I've already ranked all of Symbaroum's 36 core abilities. Now it's time to take a look at the 25 mystical powers presented in the core rulebook. As with the abilities, I feel that Symbaroum's magic powers are pretty balanced against one another, enough that we are no longer looking at an S through F field, but rather a more stable A through C field. While some powers may appear to be S tier compared to non mystical abilities, bear in mind that even attempting a mystical power bears the threat of corruption. It is important that characters following mystical traditions take appropriate abilities to temper the corruption that their mystical powers will bring. As I rank these mystical powers, I'll start with the strongest so we can understand what makes the game work before we move on to the powers that don't work so well. I won't bother to read out the full text and will instead paraphrase the ability in simplest terms needed to understand and evaluate the power. A tier powers are defining powers you will use as often as you can. B tier powers are those you can reliably use every scene, and C tier powers are situational but still not something you should outright avoid. Abilities have novice, adept, and master levels, and I will be ranking the ability as a whole while weighing the score towards those that shine brighter in the early game with less XP spent. Mechanics are most important, but sometimes flavor will win out and give an ability an edge. As a bonus ranking, after I rank each mystical power on our tier list, I want to take a look at which mystical tradition has the highest ranking of spell selection. With all that out of the way, let's get to the ranking. Maltransformation may be the best power in the game, though I could see an argument that my next pick is the strongest instead. Maltransformation is Symbaroum's take on Baleful Polymorph, transforming an enemy into a harmless beast like a mouse. It is exclusive to those following witchcraft, unless, of course, you walk the path of the self taught mystic and can use any power. This means your strongest enemy suddenly can't attack or use abilities. This power takes a constant resolute check to maintain each turn and can be broken with concentration, something we'll see come up on stronger ongoing effects. Concentration can be broken by your mystic taking damage. The adept level of maltransformation gets rid of this concentration but otherwise stays the same. Master level is where this ability pops off, allowing for a potential chain of maltransformation. Chains are established by first succeeding on the initial spell check on one enemy before moving on to the next, and so on until the mystic fails. Maltransformation is a total game changer, potentially rendering powerful opponents or even all opponents inert until your party can squash all the mice. Bend will can be used by witches, sorcerers, or theurges. In short, it allows you to take control of an enemy's mind so you can use them to your own ends, though only for one action per turn and with concentration. Adept level gets rid of concentration, and Master level increases the number of enemies' actions to 2. Bear in mind that Bend Will does not allow your enemy to use any abilities or mystic powers of their own, so they will be limited to basic attacks or potentially things like walking off a cliff to their death. Bend Will is for sure a powerful mystical power, and at first glance appears to be more powerful than Maltransformation since you can turn one enemy against other enemies rather than just render them useless. However, Bend Will has my number 2 spot only because Maltransformation scales better, eventually allowing you to transform a chain of creatures, while Bend Will hyper focuses on your control over one enemy combatant. Still exceptional, still A tier, just not my number 1 spot. Blessed Shield is available exclusively to Theurges. It grants you an additional 1d4 armor and deals 1d4 damage to any undead or abomination within melee range. Symbaroum is a system and setting brimming with flavor that bleeds into mechanics, so this is not the last we will see of an ability that thematically targets certain creatures. Novice level Blessed Shield is strong by providing both offense and defense for an investment of 10 XP and a little corruption. At a depth level, the armor and damage is increased to 1d6, and the effect is doubled because we can include an ally. Bear in mind, we don't have to roll to maintain the effect, it's just up for the entire scene. Master level follows a linear pattern by increasing the effect to 1d8 and adding an extra ally to benefit from the shield. This is a brilliant ability that is well designed, effective, and scales well. It earns its A rank. Larva Boil is a damage spell accessed by sorcerers and witches. At novice level, it deals 1d4 damage over time that ignores armor. This damage is guaranteed the first turn and could potentially extend the entire scene. Adept level ups the damage each turn to 1d6, and Master ups the damage one more step to 1d8. A simple and powerful ability. Breaking through armor is a big deal, and this can take down your toughest opponents in a few turns. An absolute bomb of an ability, easily high A tier. Lay on Hands is a healing power available to Theurges and Witches. Novice level heals 1d6 toughness, Adept level heals 1d8 and cures any poisons and bleeding, and Master level automatically heals the casting Mystic for a whopping 1d12 toughness. This is huge. Lay on Hands will keep you and your party alive, which is where most players want their characters to be. A tier for sure. Brimstone Cascade is a damage spell available to wizards. At novice level, it deals 1d12 damage on a successful test or 1d6 on a failed one. You are guaranteed a damage roll, pass or fail, though bear in mind that this damage is still subject to armor because the rules don't specifically say it bypasses it. Adept establishes a damage chain, and Master level continues the chain to every enemy even if you fail one test. This is a simple but effective damage power worthy of A tier. Mind Throw is a surprisingly versatile ability available to wizards. This is Symbaroum's version of telekinesis, and as such immediately evokes a certain character type with associated powers. Novice level allows you to throw an object, which can deal damage or form a temporary shield before being destroyed by your awesome mind. Adept level allows you to throw an enemy, dealing damage, pushing them away from you, which is where you usually want them as a mystic, and potentially knocking them prone, granting advantage to your melee allies. Master level establishes a chain of thrown enemies for overwhelming and hilarious battlefield control. Mind Throw is true to the telekinetic fantasy, allows for offense, defense, and control, and is a solid A tier mystical power. Prios's Burning Glass is a damaging ray spell available to Theurges. Novice level deals 1d6 damage, increased to 1d8 if the target is an abomination or undead. Not great, but not terrible. Adept level suddenly spikes by not only increasing the damage up a step, but allowing your ray of holy fire to hit every enemy in sight. No chain to roll here, just every enemy in sight. Master level adds a possible stun effect to all enemies. Lackluster novice level, insane adept and master level. A tier. Shapeshift is a power available only to witches. It allows the fun fantasy concept of the shapeshifter. At novice level, the form you take is a non combative little critter used for stealth and scouting. Adept level adds the prowess of a battle beast with its own abilities on par with a wild boar or a wolf, and master level allows you to transform into a battle bear with regeneration and robust. Shapeshift gets total cool points for bringing the shapeshifter fantasy to life and being pretty effective at what it does. It will require you to read up on some extra abilities and doesn't keep you alive until master level with regeneration, and by that point, your primary mode of combat will be shapeshifting. This is a defining ability that some players will really gravitate towards, and for that, it gets a spot in low A tier. Holy Aura is a power available only to Theurges. At novice level, it deals 1d6 damage ignoring armor to all undead and abominations within sight. That damage is a big deal, but the limited targets decrease this power's reliability. Where this ability pops off is at adept level, where the area of effect damage power is augmented with a wave of healing for you and your allies. Any healing is a big deal in Symbaroum, and Holy Aura has the potential to let you top off your entire party during or in between combat scenes. Master level increases damage to 1d10 and healing to 1d6. Note that this is not a multiple turn effect as the name might suggest, but rather a single huge burst of holy might. This is worth it, if only for the adept level healing, and for that, Holy Aura gets a spot at the bottom of A tier. Levitate is a defense and utility power available to wizards and theurges. It is defensive because the power's primary text allows you to avoid even the chance of all melee attacks coming at you. Your movement will be decreased and ranged attacks can still hit you, but that's not a big deal. There's also plenty of traps and terrain that can be dealt with by using this ability outside of traditional combat scenes. Adept level allows Levitate to affect an ally. Master establishes a chain effect that can hit your entire party, easily allowing you to glide over problems and melee enemies, plus you don't take falling damage when the effect ends. Levitate doesn't directly kill your enemies or heal your allies, but it establishes a defense and adds some fun utility to the game. For that, we're granting it a spot at the top of B tier. Revenant Strike is an offensive buff available to sorcerers. It adds 1d4 damage to your melee attacks, which is not bad, but it means your often unarmored mystic needs to wade into melee combat. But then we get to Adept level, which says that enemies slain by Revenant Strike rise up as zombies under your control. Okay, this won't always happen, it depends on you getting the killing blow, but that is one hell of a payoff that will immediately turn the tide in any combat scene. Master level is a damage increase to 1d8. Revenant Strike is a tricky ability and requires you to build around it, but I can see a clever melee sorcerer using this power to absolutely decimate fights. Flame Wall has a lot of text to establish a wizard power. It creates a wall of flames in front of the mystic that can damage enemies, but those enemies could still get around it if they fly or are willing to take more damage. Not bad, but a little limited. Adept level broadens the flame wall to a circle around you and your allies, but also any enemies already within melee range. Master level affects flying enemies as well. This ability can be very powerful in the right scene, acting as active protection for the Mystic and its allies at higher levels, but it will take working with your Game Master and probably a map to get right and deal solid damage. The impact can still be major, and it's an iconic spell, keeping it in B tier. Illusory Correction is an oddly named power available to wizards. Basically, it allows you to reroll a failed defense test at novice level. At Adept level, this is extended to any test made to avoid being affected by an enemy in any way. At Master level, you can extend this illusory protection to an ally. Illusory Correction is a curious little ability, but one that allows you to tank and protect your allies, making it the premier defensive power in Symbaroum. Not quite A tier, but definitely high B tier. Nature's Embrace is a defensive power available to witches. At novice level, you can hide in the dirt. This cocoon ability renders you inert, but also invulnerable, as you remain safe in the bosom of the earth. Selfish, but effective at keeping you alive. Adept level allows you to use mystical powers on yourself and gets rid of the ongoing resolute test to maintain it. Master level lets you move and use mystical powers on allies while in the dirt, meaning you could burrow around grabbing people's feet to use lay on hands while in nature's embrace. This ability is neat. Maybe not the most useful, but certainly not useless, and I can see some players having a lot of fun and making spell combos with it. It gets a spot in the middle of B tier. Confusion is a crowd control power available to wizards. It confuses your enemies with a prolonged concentration effect, prompting a roll to see if they stand still, attack your allies, or attack your enemies. It stings a bit that after you roll to succeed, there's still a chance that your target can attack you or your friends anyway. Adept level removes concentration. Master level establishes a chain. This is not a bad power and has the potential to cripple the entire enemy horde at master level. It's just a wild effect that really leaves fate to the dice, and for that, it will remain in B tier. Entangling Vines is a crowd control spell available only to witches. At novice level, it traps one enemy in vines, preventing movement and melee attacks, but allowing ranged weapons and powers. Most enemy monsters and NPCs use melee attacks, so this is not a major drawback. Adept level establishes a chain, and Master level adds on 1d6 damage over time that doesn't break through armor. This is a solid ability that isn't too flashy but can lock down foes for easy picking without providing a terrain detriment to your allies like spells like this usually would. It's reliable and we're keeping it in B tier. Unholy Aura is a damage spell available to sorcerers. At novice level, it deals 1d6 damage each round to all cultural beings and beasts within sight. That's all cultural beings, including your allies, unless someone is playing an undead from the Advanced Player's Guide. That's a pretty major drawback to an otherwise impressive damage over time spell. Adept allows you to exclude your allies. Master level increases the damage to 1d8 and actually heals undead by 1d8. This can be huge with the right party or a sorcerer using Revenant Blade to garner undead allies, but it requires some careful XP expenditure to build around. Unholy Aura's power can't be denied, but it's still B tier. Witch Hammer is a damage buff spell available to Theurges. At novice level, it adds 1d4 damage to your own melee strikes, increased for abominations and undead. Adept level ups the damage, but only for the favored foes of abominations or undead. Master level increases the same damage to 1d10. Simple but effective in the hands of a worthy Theurge, especially when following the powerful path of the Templar presented in the Advanced Player's Guide. I don't have much to say about this one, it's B tier. Unnoticeable is a utility power available to wizards and Theurges. Interesting. Symbaroum's version of invisibility. Weirdly enough, though, novice level only allows you to be unseen by one enemy until you attack or take damage. This really limits a spell that is usually iconic to fantasy role playing games of all kinds. Adept is where you remain unseen by all enemies. Master level adds the intriguing ability to include a single ally in this effect, but I have to say I'm a little underwhelmed since the master level could have included your entire party in on the action. Maybe I'm spoiled by some other game's version of invisibility. Maybe Symbaroum is making a point of nerfing it in its setting. I'm underwhelmed, but I can't deny that invisibility is still an insanely useful effect for creative role players and game masters willing to entertain that creativity. I hope I'm not being too harsh by placing unnoticeable in low B tier. Storm Arrow is an offensive power available to witches. You enchant up to 5 arrows, which float around you and can be cast out as a free action once per turn to deal 1d6 damage. At Adept level, you can use a combat action to strike twice with 1d8 arrows, and at Master level, you can strike 3 times. Storm Arrow sounded insane when I first read it, but when I kept thinking about it, I compared it to the Steel Throw ability. At Master level, Steel Throw allows for 3 attacks at 1d8 damage that don't pierce armor, and I kept that ability at B tier. Storm Arrow adds the threat of corruption and the minor caveat that you'll need to keep a few arrows handy where other mystical powers summon up damage all by themselves. Storm Arrow is still evocative, and 3 or even 2 attacks in one turn is nothing to scoff at, so it stays at the bottom of B tier. I am conflicted when it comes to Curse. Maybe others can cure my confusion in the comments. Its novice text reads that it automatically gives an enemy a second chance to fail all success tests meant to affect the mystic. That's odd considering that Symbaroum's rolls are player facing, so the enemy shouldn't be making rolls. Adept level affects the target no matter who they are targeting, the mystic or their allies. Master level adds on some damage that ignores armor unless the target chooses to do nothing with its turn, an effect we can achieve with novice level confusion or bend will. This is a strange ability, and I have a feeling it was put here to be used by the game master's fielded enemy NPCs. I'm tentatively putting it at the top of C tier. Anathema is an interesting ability available to wizards and theurges. At novice level, it is essentially an undo button for enemy mystics affecting your party with things like bend will or maltransformation. Yes, these can be used by enemies, not just player characters. So while this appears to be situational, it can be an open and shut deciding factor when the situation arises. Adept level makes this effect a chain for your allies, and Master level extends your undo button's effects. This is very strong even if it doesn't come up all the time. True Form is a utility spell available to wizards and theurges. At novice level, it allows you to see through transformations and illusions like the shapeshift power or changeling's trait. Adept actually returns a chain of transformations to their true form, and master level maintains this true form for your chain. True form is quite cool, but also quite limited. You aren't going to see transformed enemies every day. When you do, novice level will simply tell you, yep, that there is transformed. Adept and master may help you in a fight in a big way, but is that chance worth your expense of XP? I'm not sure. It will depend on your game and what kind of enemies your game master uses. Clearly, a situational ability, firmly in C tier. Oh, Inherit Wound. Inherit Wound is a healing mystical power available to Theurges and witches. Please note that these are the same two mystical traditions that can use Lay on Hands, which I placed in A tier. Inherit Wound allows you to heal 1d6 toughness on a creature by transferring it to yourself. This still requires a resolute test to make happen, but a novice level Lay on Hands does the same effect without hurting you. Adept level heals 1d8, draws out the effects of poisons and bleeding, and thankfully reduces the damage you take by half. Finally, at master level, we start to see some real benefit to this ability as the damage we draw from our ally is transferred half to us and half to an enemy within sight. This ability is full of flavor, and I want to like it more. It would be interesting if only Theurges had access to Lay on Hands, while witches had to rely on Inherit Wound to get any kind of healing. But no, witches can easily take Lay on Hands instead of this perplexing ability. Inherit Wound is a disappointing placement at the bottom of our list, and I almost added D tier just to include it. And now it's time to take a look at our Mystic Traditions rankings. First up is Witchcraft. Witches have access to 10 spells, which include 5 A tier, 3 B tier, and 2 C tier. This includes access to the best two abilities in the game, Maltransformation and Bend Will, as well as good options whether you want damage, healing, or defense. It's no wonder why Witchcraft's Tradition ability doesn't give it any extra perks beyond corruption management, and no wonder why the Ambrians value witch hunters to keep them safe from these powerful barbarian rivals. In second place, we have Theurges. Theurges also have access to 10 spells, which include 4 A tier, 3 B tier, and 3 C tier. Several of these spells are unique to only Theurges and deal extra damage to abominations and undead, making them a flavorful choice for Ambrian characters. Add to that the fact that their tradition ability gives them enhanced healing and damage, and I could easily see a case for Theurges overtaking the Witch based on thematic resonance over raw power. In close third place, we have Wizards. Wizards have access to 10 spells, 3 of which are in A tier, 5 in B tier, and 2 in C tier. While Wizards may not have some of the most powerful abilities, they make up for it in versatility and utility. Wizards can still be an impactful role in your party, and their tradition ability makes it easier for them to affect chains of enemies, making some powers even more game changing. Wizard is by no means weak, it will just take a little more work to establish your identity. And in last place, we have the Sorcerer. You may have already realized I don't mention sorcerers as much, and they have only 5 mystical powers to their name. 2 are A tier, 2 are B tier, and 1 is C tier. Their tradition ability relies on using corruption to your advantage. Sorcerers are in an odd spot, and I'm convinced that the game developers made sorcery as a villain concept before deciding they might as well offer these villainous options to player characters as well. Sorcerers can still be built right to potent effect, but it will take dedication to your concept and a special kind of party to be truly effective. But of course, if you don't want to be limited to spell lists, there's self taught mystic. Just be warned that forging your own path means you won't be picking up a mystical tradition ability, so you will be taking full permanent corruption from all mystical powers you take. Tread carefully, but have fun. Okay, that's all I have to say about mystical powers for now. I hope this tier list was helpful, and maybe I can get some veterans in the comments to tell me which abilities I got right and which I underestimated or overrated. Maybe one day I'll evaluate and rank the abilities and mystical powers in the Advanced Player's Guide, but I think I'm a few more games away from making that happen. Until next time, have a nat one day. Bye bye.